evening, everyone, and welcome to the second Speakers Series event of the Ras Al Khaimah Fine Arts Festival, titled Documenting History Through Art. We are very excited to have with us today Cheshta Roy Sarkar, a contemporary Indian artist, Mario Cardenas, a decorated Filipino architect, photographer, and self-taught artist, and Nadia Al Hashmi, an emerging Imarati artist. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Janan Farhat, and I am a research assistant at the Cheshta Roy Sarkar Al-Qasimi Foundation for Policy Research. Thank you very much to all our speakers and to our audience for attending. So, let's get started. All right, if we could begin with each of you perhaps introducing yourselves and your artistic backgrounds. Mario, how about we start with you?
All right. First of all, thanks so much for this opportunity to be here in front of you. My name is Mario Cardenas. I'm from Philippines. I graduated architecture at the University of Santo Tomas. I'm an architect by profession. Since I was young, I really loved arts. I used to draw, paint, and sketch. And also, I showcase my creative arts through photography. I started photography year 2010. And since then, it's really grateful to have won over 400 awards in photography. That's local and international competitions. And most of my photography, I've been showcasing the beauty of the Emirates.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Cheshta, how about you?
Thank you for having me here today. So my name is Cheshta Roy Sarkar. I'm a contemporary artist. I'm from India. Like I was telling you, I still call Ras Al Khaimah home. It's become more of a home in the pandemic, right? Because this is where we were. And art has been an integral part of my life since forever. I've enjoyed art all through my life. I'm a self-taught artist. And my formal journey as an artist began with the Fine Arts Festival in 2017 with Al Qasimi Foundation. And I was lucky to get chosen by them for 5 years. And I think slowly I built up as an artist, and they helped me build up as an artist, somehow encouraging me to start workshops or to paint in a different medium. And I think the journey has been beautiful.
That's really fantastic to hear. Thank you for coming. So Nadia, how about you?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to the Ras Al Khaimah Art Foundation for having me here today. My name is Nadia Al Hashmi, and I'm an Imarati visual artist. I studied both art history and art practice during my undergrad at New York University, Abu Dhabi. So I'm not only fascinated with the art practice, but also researching and documenting it as well, and studying different art movements. And that in return has definitely had a big influence in my own artistic practice. And I've worked with almost all mediums, but currently I'm focusing on combining photography with textiles, in particular the Imarati Jalabiya fabric, which is what I'm wearing right now, and turning it into digital art, as well as combining and using oral histories that were passed on through generations in order to create my art pieces.
That's really fantastic, and it's also so great to have a young and emerging Imarati artist really connecting her own history to her own family history and love for her country through her art. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with the questions that we have prepared for our speakers. So if we could begin with you again, Mario. My apologies.
Sure.
So how does history inspire you in your artwork? Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, sure. Photography, it's a very good medium to connect us to many special moments. So it connects us to many cultural events, places, development, time. Photography connects us to history. It connects us to the past, present, and future. For me as a photographer, the history gives me inspiration to keep going, to keep capturing these moments, and to keep this photography that I produced, to keep this one and consider this one like a treasure. Because after some time, the photography, it's really like you're gonna treasure it.
Of course, definitely agree with you there. History is also an inspiration for me as well. That's why I'm here. And how about you, Cheshta? Could you tell us about how history inspires you in your artwork as a contemporary artist?
Well, I think history is a part of our life. I believe that history paves the future, like a path for the future. So whatever we do now, we are sort of building up from what we learned or what we've lived or what our ancestors have lived through. And even art, like what did I see as a child? I have memories, and then I build up on it. And when I am creating art, I am creating history, because I may be, influenced by something in the moment, but then I am actually capturing it. Like he said, in photography, he's capturing moments. So in a way, he's creating history. And that's why I think I enjoy history, capturing history as well. Like for instance, I had a painting in one of the Fine Arts Festival that was a door from our National Museum. I was told that that was Sheikh Saud's childhood home. And now I have a part of the UAE's history hanging on my wall. And I think that's the beauty of art.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's really quite impressive.
Yeah, and then to connect the contemporary bit, so then, you could take a piece of history and you could add something from today. Like in that piece, there is a tree that is from today. And so you've connected past and present and built up on history with contemporary art.
Definitely agree with you there.
I just want to add something. I remember the last time I visited Al Jazeera Al Hamra, that was year 2013 or 15, and this place is really like you can see it's really, it's not same like this. So in the photography I did that time, it's like I documented the history of what the Jazeera Al Hamra, the original form. But as you can see here right now, the government, I can see, is really supporting the art festival or supporting the artists. It's now fully developed. Really, everyone can appreciate this history. So I would like to say congratulations to the government for really supporting this kind of event.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. And it's also just amazing to see, because we had a new part of the Ras Al Khaimah Fine Arts Festival open this year in Site B. So it's great to see how history also becomes increasingly accessible to the public. Okay, so Nadia, I have another question for you. So the UAE is a relatively young country, we all know that, but it has a very rich history that's still being documented. So how would you say that you use your artwork to document Imarati history?
So first of all, I completely agreed with what both Mario and Cheshta said. It definitely applies to my work as well. And the UAE is a relatively new country in terms of when the seven Emirates formed as a country. However, its people, traditions and cultures and values were here long before that. And that's what my artwork tries to encapsulate. I use old family photographs from my father's side and to document their journey of how they became Imarati, because my ancestry goes all the way back to Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and a part of our family is from Turkey, and the artwork kind of shows our journey of how we became Imarati when the nation was formed. And it's important to document and to ask questions, to ask more questions to your family exactly of how their family immigrated here, how they became Emirati or whatever nationality, to understand more about their past. And I feel like people tend to look or dive into their past in order to try to understand their present better. And that's exactly what I tried to attempt to do in this project by combining oral histories, photography, and by at the same time overlaying the jalabiya pattern and on top of these images. Because even though these family members would dress differently because they're from different time periods, and for example Aden was colonized by the British, so their style of clothing was more influenced by the West. And so one way that I could connect myself to them is the jalabiya pattern, because that's the one thing that hasn't changed, and it's what immortalizes me and connects me to them. So that in its way, that's how my artwork talks about Imarati history.
That's really beautiful, and I'm really actually I haven't managed to see your work yet, but I'll be sure to specifically look for it in the site. All right. So next question for Mario. So could you tell us a little bit about how you begin the process of creating an artwork?
Okay, that's a very good question. Actually, in photography, for me, it's really important. For example, I'm gonna give, for instance, this theme for this year, the journey. In photography, it's really important to understand what's the theme or the theme of the photography you want to portray, and analyzing and understanding the theme. It's really important as a photographer artist to understand what you're gonna select as a subject, okay? And with all this information is study, it's not just the moment like you go to one place that you're gonna capture the winning shot. It's like there's a process. Like when you climb the stair, you have to step 1 to step 10. So there's a process. And selecting the subject in photography is really important also that you select the right time, not only the right time, the right place, and the right moment. And with all this process and information, of course, you have to exert dedication and effort in your photography. So if you can approach your photography in like a unique and creative perspective way, so there's a chance for you that the judges or the jury will give attention to your shot. Yeah.
That's really great to hear. Okay, how about you, Cheshta? How do you begin the process of creating an artwork?
It is what am I feeling in that moment? What are the medium I want to use? And then it could begin anywhere. For me, a lot of times it begins with a quote I read. Like I did a series which was influenced by quotes of Rumi. And like he said, the theme. So if you have a theme in mind and you read a quote, that could inspire an artwork. Or it could be, I saw something or I was thinking of something, and you think of the subject you want to paint. And then like Mario said, it's a step-by-step process, yes. So I know somewhat what I want to paint, and then what are the colors that I want to use. A lot of time the colors, okay, there are palettes that go together, but then the colors would be in that moment, where am I? What am I feeling towards the artwork? And then eventually you see what is working out, what is not, and then you just let your creativity flow. I've just finished a workshop which is painting on bags using fabric and Zentangle art. I do a lot of Zentangle art, which is a free flow art. It is very meditative and you just let yourself go. So you start a creative process by laying out what you want to do, and then you have to let your creativity flow. So that's more it.
That's very, very, very interesting, actually. I haven't quite heard of this type of art form. What kind of emotions do you say are the ones that you get in touch with when you're creating an artwork?
I am a very emotional person, and emotions play a big part for me in my life. My friends and family will tell you, I think they go crazy because of that. And so a lot of my artwork, it has to make me happy. And what I want the audience also is to feel that. I want to evoke emotions of happiness, joy. I'm really fond of colors, and I believe that colors brighten up the world. And that's what I want to bring to the world in terms of emotions, happiness, joy, get you in touch with the beauty that surrounds us, the ethos of life. Like I was talking about the quotes of Rumi. Now, I don't know why I connect with a lot of thoughts. I just read a book once that talking about his quotes, and they're really thought-provoking. So I believe an art piece is not just beauty and colors. There's, like he was saying, there's a lot of work that goes behind it. So I'd like my audience to think, and you'll be amazed the kind of responses and emotions you get out of it. Last year I had a piece here, 2 years ago. I painted it with the emotion of us living here, different nationalities, connecting together, and the thought and emotions of love, joy, peace, friendship being the same for us. And then I have a friend whose little girl came to see it, and she messaged me, and this girl brought out a different interpretation to it. So I believe every art piece, you will connect with it with different emotions, and I will with different emotions. But I'd like to listen to all the emotions that it brings to everyone.
That is really beautiful. And I think also because we so often think of art as something that we just appreciate visually or something we feel, but I love that you also said art is supposed to make us think and also feel, appreciate diversity. There's so many different elements to it, so many different interpretations. So I really love that.
Thank you.
All right, so Nadia, I have another question for you. So the theme memory is a quite prominent feature of many of your works. Could you tell us a little bit about what kind of memories you aim to capture through your art?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And for me, the perfect metaphor to describe the concept of memory is almost like a tapestry. People try to stitch in together and fill in the gaps of their own interpretation of events of what they think happened, and it's kind of similar to what memories and oral history is. It's very subjective, and depending on who's telling the story and who's the narrator. And so in particular for my piece, the faces of my family members are a little bit blurred out, and that represents that memory can be distorted and can shift throughout time. And also at the same time, people project their own, I think you also just mentioned this right now, people project their own feelings, their own interpretations onto a memory, whether it's an art piece, whether it's an item or a photograph. Like you and I could look at the same photograph and have two different perspectives on it. We project our interpretations onto memories. So memories is completely subjective. And for me, I went through hundreds of old family photos, and I at the same time used the process of curation of picking or eliminating photos I wanted to be displayed or did not want to be displayed. So at the same time, I'm choosing the narrative. I'm picking this photo and not showing this. And on top of all of that, again, overlaying the jalabiya pattern in itself is encapsulating memory. It's traditional clothing that's been here for centuries, and using that with photography, with old family photos, with history, and also using, if you look at the artwork in itself, there's so many layers of different skylines of where my family came from. So all in that together encompasses memory.
It's really great. I have a question actually, because I think it's so, everyone, or at least many people do know that oral history is such an important part of Imarati heritage. So did you by any chance speak with maybe some of your grandparents or your extended family members to also kind of just pick their brains and see what they think of Imarati history and your own family history?
So that's exactly what I did. So before COVID, I was working with the textiles and kind of trying to explore the boundaries between fabric and sculpture. And after the pandemic and after the lockdown, I no longer had access to my art studio. So I kind of had to adapt to the current situation, and that's when I kind of went into digital art. And at the same time, since we spent a lot of time at home, my father started showing me a lot of old family photographs from his side. And this is where I started to realize of how much the style of dress changed. So after that, I started to ask different family members, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and it was so interesting because each one of them had their own narrative or new information that the other one didn't. So maybe if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't have dug so deep into my family's history. I wouldn't have even started this project. So I would like to encourage others to ask all of their family members and to really find out more about their ancestors, so that they could align themselves with their lineage, because it definitely helped me understand my identity better.
Yeah, I was gonna say, identity connects so closely to the concepts of history and artwork. So before we proceed with the next questions, I just wanted to ask if anyone in the audience has any questions. You know, did you have any particular questions that came up when one of our speakers was talking? I'd be happy to pass the mic to you, if that would be the case.
We have a very nice audience, very kind.
Yes.
And I think they've got our point absolutely right. Whatever we wanted to say, they've understood and they agree with us as well.
You're very articulate,
For
that's
sure.
why. There's, yeah.
I
No room
wholeheartedly
for
agree.
question.
All right, if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. I would be happy to ask that in between one of the questions that's being asked. All right, so Mario, you are next. All right, so you are an artist with a very diverse background, with numerous accolades, and of course, extensive experience in the art scene in countries all around the world. So how would you say your international exposure and your architectural background influence the local artworks that you create, specifically in the UAE?
What I can say as a photographer, because I have participated in many or various international exhibition and events as well. So the good thing about photography, for example, I took a shot in Liwa. As we all know, Liwa is a pristine desert, is really beautiful. So if I showcase this one in international arena, so like the photographers or the travelers gonna look into the same photo, the beautiful desert, it's really magnificent. They're gonna encourage to visit UAE. So those are one of the contribution of the photographers. And also as a photographers, have won various awards. As you can see here, the one my winning shot for the Ras Al Khaimah Fine Arts Photography.
That's quite
Or
beautiful.
the festival, sorry.
It's amazing, yes.
That one is I presented some unique perspective. So it gives inspiration, especially to the young generation of artists and photographers. So I believe those kind of contribution really like a big achievement for me as an artist photographer. So this inspiration, because when I was also beginning at this field in photography, I was looking forward to look for the unique and creative artworks from different artists around the world. So this inspiration is really important for the artists.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. What would you say about the architectural mindset you bring to your photographs?
Okay. Regarding the architecture, I'm an architect by profession, and also one of my favorite subjects in photography is architecture. Like for example, in Jazeera Al Hamra, I'm not looking at this like the traditional architecture only. Actually, when I visited, that was February 3. When I entered the port, I look into the details of the wall. If you have noticed, the wall, it's made of mud or clay. And before, there's no reinforcement bars or steel. What they use, my understanding only looking into the structure is, this is like, for me, it's like a fisherman's village, something like that. Or they use what's the materials available in the location. So I noticed these walls, they use the clay, the mud, and they provided the coral in between, like the reinforcement for the wall. It's really amazed me. And also, I'm looking into that details, for example, those opening the windows, the port, how it's been constructed, this tall structure without the reinforcement part. So that's really amazed me. And in architecture as well, the heritage of buildings here, the forts, is really interesting for photography. So that's really very good to showcase to the world as well.
Yeah, no, I myself, when I was passing through the village and I checked some of the walls, you could see that it was made of, like you could see that the renovations included, I think, seashells and
Yeah.
traditional
It's
mortar.
really amazing. It's really amazing.
It's
yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I was taken aback and enthralled myself.
Correct. Right now, I've been working on one traditional architecture. It's in Saudi Arabia, and the typical wall is we're using like 200 only. But if you notice the wall of the traditional architecture, they're using like 500 the thickness of the wall. It's really amazing how they construct it.
All right, yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much. All right, so next question for Cheshta. So you are a contemporary artist, and you have been showcasing your works in RAKFAF for 5 years. And you also mentioned that a lot of your work focuses on the ethos of life. So in that case, what feelings would you say that your artwork evokes, or what do you want to evoke in those? What feelings do you want to evoke in those who view your art?
Like I said, I think my whole life revolves around the feelings and emotions of joy and happiness. And so I want the viewer to feel the joy that I felt when I was creating the artwork. And again, also, like we were discussing earlier, to make them think. So I'm a self-taught artist. Many years ago, yes, I enjoyed art. But then when I looked at something, I said, oh, it's beautiful. And that's where I stopped. And slowly, like when I started here, so there was that first piece that I did, and it made me think, right, my art piece needs to send out a message. And that's when my thinking towards art changed, honestly. It was not just something I was looking at, and yes, it's pretty, it'll make a wall pretty, but it's something that will make you think. And that's something I learned very late in life, and I'd like to transfer it to the viewers as well, that it could be something, yes, but the emotions of, okay, I want to portray joy, or I want to portray deeper emotions. Like if I am painting something with, say, Rumi's quotes, obviously it can't just be joy and happiness. There's more to think about, like I was saying, I painted a series recently. So it was our journey in life, how, our stages are that, when we are born, we are connecting with the world physically, really. I'm learning what everything is. And then I move on to connecting with you as a person. And then at the end, what is really important for us is our journey within. I connect with myself. So looking at my artwork and maybe the quote that inspired it, I'd like my viewers to think as well that, okay, this is just the one series, that you connect with yourself, and there's a deeper meaning to life. So the ethos that you mentioned, that's really important for me, because I started thinking like that there's a deeper meaning to every piece, not just the ones I make, everything. Like his picture there, it's not just a family standing there. He's talking about the journey of their family, and I'm sure he can tell you better, but it's my interpretation that, you can see history, you can see future. So it's the ethos of life that's coming out from there as well. So I'd like my audience also to connect with, again, the thoughts, deeper thoughts in life, and I'd like it at the end of the day, yes, to bring joy to them.
Yeah, I very much agree. Would you say that there was a particular reason behind the turning point that you had from when you used to view art as something beautiful, and then you changed to focus on?
I think before that I was just painting for myself, and even now, like the Zentangle bit I was telling you, do it a lot for myself. So it's a calming and meditative thing. So when I'm doing it for myself, I'm really not, it could be just for myself, it's making me happy, and that's where I stop. But when the turning point was when I started painting formally. So it was not just for me, for my sketchbook. I was painting formally, and therefore I was aiming to display it somewhere. And then that was the turning point. It just couldn't any longer be a beautiful thing to decorate a place, but it needed to have a meaning, it needed to have a story, it needed to be thought-provoking. And I think that was the turning point, maybe, that where art became a little formal in life, or maybe I was painting as more, I would say, at a more serious level in life, and I wanted to send out a message, maybe. That's the turning point, I think. And again, it was in 2017 with the first time I participated with the Fine Arts Festival.
Yes, and
That's the turning point.
we're very happy to have you here. And thank you for, of course,
You're
participating
welcome.
over the past couple of years, all of you. All right, so Nadia, I have a question for you. As an up-and-coming artist in the UAE, your artworks increasingly touch upon many socio-political constructs, including in family collage. What inspired you to trace your family's heritage through the mediums of textiles and digital photography? Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I truly wanted to understand myself better, my identity better. And because my family comes from different countries from the Middle East, they all had different experiences. They lived through, some of them lived through civil wars, and it was hard to try to put myself into their footsteps. But the one way that I could was through the jalabiya fabric, and it seems very important to try to understand them, what they went through, so that I could understand myself better.
Yeah. Would you say that because the jalabiya is something that is worn in many different countries, right, across the Middle East and North Africa, would you say that there is a particular pattern that is used that is perhaps distinct in the UAE, or there are many different types of patterns that are used?
The most common pattern is a flower pattern, but there is many different types. It could be like this. This is kind of it's kind of not really like flowers, but it just depends on that person's taste, and as well as there are different types of jalabiyas. There's jalabiyas that you wear at home just to relax. There are jalabiyas where you go to weddings with, or for formal events. So for every particular like event, you would wear a different kind of jalabiya, and it holds different meaning. Yeah.
Would you say that there's a gendered element to the jalabiya, in the sense that there are certain jalabiyas for women, and
so in general, people could just use the word kandora, which is also a jalabiya, but also kandora, like what men wear kandora. But in terms of the word jalabiya, that would be gender specific for women. Yes.
all right, that's great. All right, so I have one question that I would actually like to ask it to all of you, if you don't mind, because I think you all have, great experience and, many valuable things to pass on to up-and-coming Imarati artists. So my last main question would be, do you have any advice for up-and-coming Imarati artists, specifically in the UAE, based on your experience living here and working here? If we could begin with Mario and Cheshta. Thank you.
I believe especially for the aspiring photographer, so always be inspired. Let's keep honing our skills. Even the master photographer never stops learning new things. And some of the beginners in photography, they ask question to me or to some pro. They can ask question, what is the best camera to use in photography? What I can say is, whatever you have right now, that's the best camera you can use. Even the mobile, you can take a wonderful shot. So in taking shot, again, you need to have a process. Study the team, select the correct subject, be in right place, be in right moment, right time. And also, for example, if you want to do photography, you want to capture a beautiful sunrise or sunset, do not go to the location during the noon time. You have to wake up early, prepare before the shoot, be in right place at right time, then you can capture a beautiful shot. That's it. Thank you.
That's really great advice. Yeah, there's so much work that's involved with art, and I think sometimes for those of us who aren't artists, you see an artwork and you're like, oh, that's so pretty, as Cheshta was saying, and then you move along and you don't really think about the hours that it took to come up with the concept and the process.
It's a long process.
Yeah. Kudos to you, and so much respect, and admiration for what you guys do. So how about you, Cheshta? What would you say? Any advice you could give?
I'll pick my advice from what you just said. You said for those of us who are not artists, I'd like to say all of us are artists. And there is no bounds to creativity. It's not that I drew a bird and it looks just like a bird and therefore I'm an artist. No, you can give anyone paints or any medium and everyone can create beauty. So I'd like to tell the young Emirati artists that don't bind yourselves by saying, oh, well, I'm not artistic or I'm not an artist. Just explore different media or let your creativity flow, let your emotions flow. And I'd say connect with emotions, connect with your past and the beautiful surroundings. I think the most beautiful paintings that we see are of the sea and have palm trees, and that's all right here. So what we need to do is just take a pen and a paper, head down to anywhere where you are, and you have a beautiful piece. It doesn't need to look perfect. It is art, and beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. And somebody will see the beauty in your piece. So the young artists or the young generation needs to just think that we're all artists. And we will all create beauty and we will all create history and capture the beauty of the UAE through our art.
Spoken like a true artist. All right, so Nadia, the last question for you. Do you have any advice for any up-and-coming artists as an up-and-coming artist yourself?
First of all, I loved everything that you said.
Thank you.
It's so completely true. My number one advice would be learn how to be vulnerable and be okay with being vulnerable, because creating an artwork and showcasing it to the public, you're showcasing something that's so extremely personal to you, and it's like you're opening up your heart, you're putting it up on the wall, and you're asking everyone, oh, critique me, and it can be very jarring, it can be very scary, and overcoming that and accepting that sometimes there will be failures, there will be success. And a second very important thing is to find a community of people that are like-minded, that are creative, that could help you develop your ideas, that you can bounce off ideas off each other, and in doing so you can grow as an artist. Like, instead of being stuck at work, only having work friends or only having university friends that are just engineers, you need to find a group of people that are in one way or another artists, so that they could give you feedback, they could tell you new concepts that you've never thought of. And for me, it was so important for me to find that group of people, and it's definitely impacted my career. And with that, you can also network, meet people, collaborate. You can meet curators. You open up so many opportunities by getting involved in the local art scene. And third of all, applying to things like RAKFAF, putting yourself out there. And I'm so grateful for Al Qasmi Foundation and all the other art organizations in the UAE that not only support Emirati artists but international artists. I feel like the UAE has been stepping up their game in terms of where they place themselves in the art world in the region. And I'm very proud of my country, and I'm very proud that no matter where you're from, no matter what your experience is, there is a lot of support and a lot of help out there. Like, even joining a workshop, learning a new art form that you never thought that you could ever learn. Like, for example, I just took one workshop about sewing, and then all of a sudden I completely changed completely changed my medium and started integrating sewing into my art form. So just opening up, being open, being vulnerable, and not being afraid of rejection. That's it.
I really love that.
That's the biggest advice she's given, really.
For
Not
sure.
being afraid of rejection. I think all of us need to learn that. We think we know it, but when somebody says, oh, that's not nice, I think artists are the most vulnerable people. And that's, I think, the best advice that we all need to remember and learn, not just the upcoming ones.
I would like to add also regarding what mentioned about the UAE in supporting the artists, not only the Emirati but even the expat. It's really, it's very good.
Of course, we're so happy to have you, and I think I really couldn't agree more, because being brave is so important. I think specifically in the art field, but also in whenever you're trying any kind of new venture. And for young artists, it can be really terrifying, as you said. So, yeah, much respect to you, Nadia, and to all of you, really, for putting yourselves out there and letting us, artists but non-professional artists perhaps, appreciate your works. All right, so we've come to the end of the question segment of the session. If anyone has any questions, I would be more than happy to. Well, the floor is yours, so please feel free to ask if you do have any.
See, we have a lovely audience again.
Very,
They
very.
agree with us.
They
But
agree
she was
with
asking
everything.
something. Were you asking something? I saw your hand going like this, and I said something.
Yeah.
I do kind of have a little question. I'm really interested. I'm a filmmaker, so I'm really also interested in photography. So I was just wondering, as a photographer yourself, what draws your attention? Like, what's the motivation? Is the thing that inspires you the most? And you're like, oh, I want to take a photo of that, or like, I want to know what is it that actually like grabs your attention?
I'll just repeat the question. So the question was, what motivates a photographer to capture a particular moment, if that's correct? Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I'm gonna say, during my I'm just telling a story, but it's connected to that. Okay, when I enrolled or entered my college, when I was young, I want to be a painter. If someone gonna ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I just want to be a painter. Okay, during the college, I entered the entrance exam to my college. I took the fine arts major in painting. However, my sister told me to move to architecture. So I completed the architecture. However, I'm practicing architecture. Still, I'm doing the arts. I paint, I sketch, and also I find a medium, photography. You know, as an artist, it's like what I can say, it all connects to all forms of arts. It's like it's running in our blood. It's in our, we have the skills to perform any form of art, even if it's photography, it's sketches, it's drawing, architecture, design. We can all relate. It's like we just need more efforts and dedication and motivation to do what we want to do. For example, me, I'm doing photography. I bought some gadgets related to the filming, but at the same time doing the same thing, it's really difficult. I need to focus on one thing. I have this, for example, I'm gonna schedule in one day, this day, I'm gonna do photography, and maybe another day, I will just do everything just for filming. But I tried it like I have both of the gears for photography and filming. However, it's really difficult. For example, because I'm doing also the off-roading, and I used to hunt, not hunt by gun. I used to shoot Arabian oryx and gazelle in the middle of the desert. I have my long lens, and I also have the for video. Doing the same thing in very fast or very quick moment, it's really difficult. Either you choose what you want to do, photography or filming. So you're gonna decide. Although the same you can do, but you need to wait for the right time to do many things.
So perhaps then focusing on one thing at a time?
One thing at a time, and maybe you spend, like, for example, as I mentioned, maybe this weekend, because I'm doing only photography during the weekend. It's not really my professional career. So for example, this weekend, I will just purely do photography. And maybe the next week, I will just do the filming. Still, I can do both.
That's a really.
Although I'm not really professional in filming, but I just want to collect, videos.
That's very impressive, actually. I don't know how you do it, Mario. All right, so any other questions that we can ask any of our lovely speakers? Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, how do you deal with creative blocks, if your creative juices aren't flowing and if you have deadlines or if you're just doing something for yourself, how do you kind of get back into that zone? Yeah, go ahead.
That's definitely happened to me so many times, especially after finishing a big project. You've kind of splurted out all of your creative ideas, and then creative burnout is such a very real thing. And one ways you can tackle this is visiting art galleries, visiting museums, looking at other people's artworks. You might be inspired. Even watching a film, hearing a song, reading a book. You could just read one quote and then boom, you have an idea. And also journaling everything down, journaling all your ideas, and one way or another, you might look back you might look back at everything that you read, and you could put the puzzle pieces together and come up with a new idea. But it's also good to just give yourself a break, travel or isolate yourself for a bit, meditate and truly clear your mind, just to open yourself up to new ideas when you're ready. I hope that answers your question.
So I'd pick it up from what she had initially said in her advice. Again, I'm a very emotional person, and everyone gets blocks. And again, when you're close to a deadline, well, that's the time your creative block is going to come. For me, how it's opened up, at least in the past, is connecting with my friends from my creative community. They can work magic. Well, mine do. And you speak to them and just talk about, where are you stuck? Somebody or the other is going to give you an idea. Or just take a rough paper and start. You'll probably make something that you'll have to throw away. But then you are going through that block, right? You can't think. So you can think all the time, but you don't know if it's going to be so beautiful or just right. So whatever the block is, just make it and throw it, and eventually that whole process is going to take you there. Like, for instance, start with a piece and, oh my God, the colors are not working. What if I did a blue instead of the red? And you're going to get there. And I think that's where, or just, like she said, take a break. Move to another medium. So if I'm doing acrylics, take a break, move to inks or something. And it's going to break the barrier. And then one of my friends has told me, she still tells me, and she's sitting right there in the audience, that start small. So I'm always stuck because I want to make a big painting. And then I will tell her, I don't know what to do. And she's told me so many times that just do something small. It's going to break that barrier, and it's going to take you to where you want to be.
For me in photography, what I'm doing is I want to get inspired by looking to a beautiful photography, not only in the Emirates, not only in the Philippines, but international. So what I'm doing is even looking on social media or even watching the television or the documentation. It's like, for example, when I look at the film, it's like it's a combination of many frames. Sometimes I just stop in one film and to say, oops, this idea is really give me inspiration. That, of course, I am not going to copy, but it gives me inspiration to somehow capture, if not the same, if not equivalent, maybe better. I'm just telling to myself. So what I'm doing when I look at the social media, or maybe when I look at the Google image, those images that gives me inspiration, I collect it, I put it in one folder. Then from time to time, I just keep on looking at those images. Then, sometimes as an artist, when you look at one image, you're gonna feel that you really connect to one image, and somehow, I wish I want to create the same, or maybe, create something really nice to add to your portfolio. And also, as an artist, it's really very important for us to be inspired all the time and always just keep honing our skill, learning new things.
I'd just like to add one more thing to what
Please.
Mario said. As an art historian myself, I found it very useful to look back at a lot of different art movements and not necessarily copy what they did, but understand why did that art movement happen, why did that artist make that decision, why did Cubism came about, why did the Dada movement came about, why did Surrealism happen, looking at these artworks and taking pieces from it. And that definitely, you might take a piece of everything, or you might take your own, have your own take on what previous artists have done, and that could help you with a creative block.
I think that was actually a really excellent question.
Sorry, I want to add one item
Sure.
also. This is related to photography competition. So this is also connecting to the aspiring photographers or artists. So usually, for example, there's a new photographer or artist, and he wants to join the competition. Okay, the first in his mind or her mind is, I want to win this competition. But in reality, for me, I have joined many competitions. For example, I'm gonna join like 30 competitions. It's very lucky for me to win one contest. So it's not about winning actually. It's about learning why you lose the competition, right? When you look, for example, I joined one competition and they exhibited their work. I never win. What I gonna do? I gonna visit the exhibit or visit the website. Then I'm gonna start analyzing what's in this image or this work that really get it, nail it. Then I started to develop. I started to create new approaches in my photography, the lighting, the sharpness, the subject. It's not about failure. It's about learning from your failure. That's the real winning.
It definitely worked for you.
Yeah.
Congratulations once again.
Yeah, agree with everything that you all said, and I think that was also a lot of great advice that we can, implement not just in the artistic field but also in other fields, because a lot of us also experience creative blocks, for writing, or even if we're doing research like myself, then there are also creative blocks in terms of content. All right, I think we've come to the end of the session. So if anyone else has any questions, perhaps feel free to approach one of the artists directly afterward. But yeah, I think that's pretty much a wrap. Thank you all three of you so much for coming today, and thank you to our lovely audience for being patient and being very nice audience today.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and thank you to the Al Qasimi Foundation for such a wonderful event and for holding the speaker series.
The pleasure is ours.
We appreciate all of the work and all of the hard work you've done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.